upgraded the firmware of your DJI Mavic AIR 2, and now you have resolution options available of 1080p, 4K and 8K. And you're wondering, why even bother? 8K was there before, 8K is the highest resolution, might as well always choose that, right? Not quite. At 8K, the drone can only take a photo every 6 seconds, versus with 4K and 1080p, it can take a photo every 2 seconds. So now, what difference does it make, and what other advantages and disadvantages do you have when you choose 4K over 8K? That's what we're gonna find out today, right now. What's going on, guys? My name is Dan. If you're new here, I do drone how-to videos, video editing tutorials and epic drone videos. If that's the kind of stuff that you're into and you want to support the channel, consider subscribing by clicking the little red button down below. And if you really like what I'm doing, you might want to click the bell so that YouTube notifies you whenever I make a new video. Okay, today we want to compare the 8K hyperlapse option to the 4K hyperlapse option. And technically there's also the 1080p, but 1080p is effectively the same as 4K. I mean, there's no other difference than the obvious difference, which is the resolution. So you might as well pick 4K. However, that's not the case with 4K and 8K. As mentioned before, under 8K, the drone only takes photos every 6 seconds, versus with 4K, the drone can take a photo every 2 seconds. Now that's 3 times as many photos. So what does it mean? Okay, so for demonstration purposes, here's a 4K hyperlapse taking a photo every 2 seconds. The drone is going at the maximum hyperlapse speed, which is 4.5 miles per hour. And this is what that looks like. Okay, and here we have the same hyperlapse, or pretty much the same hyperlapse, in 8K, again, at the maximum hyperlapse speed of 4.5 miles an hour. But the drone's only taking a photo every 6 seconds. So let's put them side by side and see what the major differences are. So the kind of obvious one is that under 8K the time lapse is shorter. I mean, the same distance was covered and it took the same amount of time to capture the time lapse. However, you've recorded less frames and therefore you get less video at the end of it. In my opinion, and you can see this really well in this side-by-side comparison here, the 8K one is just more choppy or more jittery. Okay, the next difference is that in 8K the overall result is choppier. I mean, if you put them side by side, you can see it pretty clearly, and it also makes sense because if you only take a photo every 6 seconds, there's a lot less frames in between. So every change in movement in the environment kind of gets amplified. So it may be exactly the thing that you want, it may be exactly what you're going for, but in general, especially when you're just trying out all these different hyperlapse options, only getting a photo every 6 seconds makes the whole result more jittery. So the other thing is photo quality, like actual photo quality. You know how the camera takes photos every X seconds. It's a little bit hard to show on a YouTube video like this, and photo quality is always a little bit subjective, so take it with a grain of salt. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you look at a 48 megapixel or like an 8K photo here on the right, and then you take a 4K photo on the left, the 4K photo just looks cleaner, it looks sharper, it looks better in my opinion. And if you blew up the 4K to 8K, you probably wouldn't get a really good result, and your 8K hyperlapse might actually look better. But that brings me to my next point, which is why shoot 8K at all, actually? Because most of your videos are gonna be in 1080p or 4K for that matter. So whatever time lapse you're doing is gonna be one part of your video, which is gonna be in 4K anyway. In other words, most likely you're gonna downscale your 8K hyperlapse regardless, because you're editing in a 4K timeline. Yes, it might be cool to have a YouTube video that has a bunch of time lapses that are all in 8K, and you have one of the only 8K videos on YouTube. But then again, I don't know anyone with an 8K TV. Do you? If you do, let me know down below in the comments. Maybe we can have a viewing party at their place. I'm sorry, I hope I didn't crush your dreams of epic 8K hyperlapses. I mean, you can still go wild and make 8K hyperlapses. Just be aware that you're probably gonna downscale them anyways. And with 4K, you just have more options. You know, you can take photos every 2 seconds, which is nicer because one of the key takeaways here today is that the video or the final result of the hyperlapse is going to be smoother with just 2 seconds. Now, if you have a completely wind still day and you use the free hyperlapse mode, which I made a video about, you can check it out in the description, and you don't move the drone at all, you just hover at a certain altitude and you point it at the sun and you get a nice sunset. Yeah, every 6 seconds might be enough and you get a beautiful 8K hyperlapse, time-lapse of the sun setting, which may be just exactly what you need. But in a lot of cases, especially when you do a hyperlapse and not just a static time-lapse where the camera is moving and the subject is moving, every 6 seconds is just a little bit too choppy and too jittery. Keep in mind, the camera settings are universal, so if you change it from 4K to 8K for the free mode, it will also be changed to 8K for all the other hyperlapse modes that there are, like waypoint, course lock, and circle. So always check your camera settings right before you do a hyperlapse, because it might be set to 1080p and then you'll be annoyed with yourself that you didn't shoot it in 4K. So check the camera settings beforehand. And that's all I have to say about 4K versus 8K hyperlapses for the DJI Mavic Air. I appreciate you watching until this point. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments down below what else you would like to hear about, and show your support by subscribing to the channel. And if you really like what I do here, click the bell icon, because YouTube will be right in your face every time I make a new video. Well, not really. I mean, there's gonna be a little notification on your phone. So you decide. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.